moving 200 sheep. This late in the day? Without help? And no one to talk to? He was just making excuses, and deep down he knew it. This move couldn't be helped. They did need new grazing land if he was going to get them fattened up for the upcoming winter. And besides, it was a relatively small flock to move. It's just, he hated the path he needed to take. Right through the middle of that forest. The place was evil. Everyone said so. His mamea, his grandmother, told him stories about the shadows that moved through the trees on their own, and who stayed too long in the forest, or if you ventured off the path, they would steal your shadow and your life, making you one of them. He had outgrown those stories, of course, but they were still in the back of his mind as he guided his flock into the forest. Let's make this quick, he thought, whistling the command to speed up that he had taught the sheep to obey. They obliged and started to move along the path, just a little quicker. It started to get darker and darker as he moved in among the trees. Those unnaturally bent and twisted trunks only made his growing apprehension move to the forefront of his thoughts. What was that? He thought. He scanned the tree line in the direction the sound came from, but with all the sheep, he couldn't tell if it was them or something else. There it was again, this time behind him. He whirled around. Nothing. This time to his right. Was there more than one thing moving around? Wait, there among the trees just off the path. Something darker than it should be seemed to be standing between the trees. He locked his eyes on the spot. Was this one of the shadow thieves his mamea had warned him of? It couldn't be. It was just a story for kids, right? No, he wasn't going to chance it by looking away and letting it get to him. No way was he going to become a shadow. No way was he... Wait, where did the sound go? Why couldn't he hear his sheep? Out of the corner of his eye, he could still see they were trudging along the path. He refocused on the thing in front of him. It was bigger than any man he'd ever seen before, and he could tell it was looking right at him, even though there were no eyes and no face. He could still tell he was looking right at him. Something was behind him now, but he knew he couldn't break eye contact or he was dead. But what if it was another one? Should he run? No, he had to keep the one in front of him or it would be on him in a second. An icy cold came over his body as something started wrapping around his neck and beginning to squeeze. Now it was too late to run. The shepherd began to struggle for breath and his vision began to blur. He tried to break free, but he couldn't find anything actually holding his neck. He had to risk it. He had to see what was choking him. He broke eye contact with the shadow and struggled to turn around. There was nothing there. What was going on? He couldn't breathe. He couldn't yell for help. The shadow. He struggled to turn around only to find the shadow right in front of him. All the shepherd could do now was to die. The following day, the shepherd's help arrived at the field where the sheep were to be grazing, only to find it empty. He searched for the shepherd, but to no avail. Eventually, more people joined the search, but the shepherd and his 200 sheep were never seen or heard from ever again. Hey, trippers! Welcome to another episode of the Road Tripping Podcast. I'm your host, Dean Ward. As always, it's great to have you tuning in. If this is your first episode, then welcome. If it's not your first episode, then welcome back. As always, we want to take this opportunity to say thank you for letting us provide you with content that helps your commute suck just a little less. It really means a lot to us that you're listening. I hope you enjoyed the intro, as that story is part of today's show suggestion, which came to us from a listener using the handle I Love to Travel 137. They didn't leave an actual note for us to read to you, but suggested some interesting links for us to follow. Thanks, I Love to Travel 137. Molly and I appreciate your efforts on this, as we have never heard of your suggestion before. If any of you listeners would also like to leave a show suggestion, head over to our website, theroadtrippingpodcast.com, that's tripping with a G, and click on the suggestions link at the top of the page. Without further ado, I present to you the Hoia Baciu forest, said to be one of the most haunted forests in the world. While the encounter I described in the intro is fictitious, the forest was named after a shepherd that disappeared in the area with a flock of 200 sheep. Located just outside of Romania's second largest city, Cluj-Napoca, the unofficial capital of Transylvania, the forest covers an area of over 250 hectares, or 729 acres. Its perimeter is about 3 miles in circumference, so it can easily be walked around in a day. This forest is often referred to as the Bermuda Triangle of Romania due to the strange things said to be going on here. Residents and visitors alike have reported ghosts, apparitions appearing in photographs, unexplained disappearances, inky dark shadow people, red and orange orbs, lights with no discernible sources, disembodied female voices, phantom giggling, missing time, mysterious plant growth or lack of plant growth in certain areas, to even UFO sightings. As far as the paranormal goes, this forest has had a bit of everything reported throughout the years. It has even been said that the mysterious clearing where nothing other than grass and weeds grow exists a portal to another dimension that is protected by the spirits of peasants that were murdered there sometime in the distant past. Most people who live near the forest are afraid to enter it due to the stories and legends that have been handed down throughout the centuries. In fact, if you try to go to the forest by hired car today, they will either refuse the fare or will drop you off with a considerable hike left. They believe that those who visit the site will never return home. One such story focuses on a 5-year-old girl who wandered into the forest and got lost. The story goes that she emerged from the forest 5 years later, wearing the same untarnished clothing that she wore the day she disappeared, with no memory of what had happened or where she had been in that interval of time. Those that are brave enough to venture into the forest have complained of physical harm, including rashes, nausea, vomiting, migraines, burns, scratches, anxiety, and other unusual sensations, including the feeling of constantly being watched. Moreover, electronic devices are known to malfunction when introduced into the area. Batteries that were freshly charged when entering the forest are mysteriously discharged from little to no use. Some paranormal investigators have associated these strange malfunctions with supernatural activity. UFO sightings are said to have been reported starting in the late 1960s. The first found was by a biologist named Alexandru Sift, who snapped photos of a flying disc-shaped object in the sky above the forest that clearly shows a disc-shaped object. The second sighting, and I would argue the more famous, occurred on August 18, 1968, at around 1:30 in the afternoon. While construction technician and former military officer Emil Barnea and his girlfriend were taking a walk through the forest, Emil managed to capture a photograph of a flying saucer over the Hoia Baciu forest. He managed to take a total of 4 photographs of the craft before it moved out of sight, all in the space of 2 minutes. He also took notes on the place, time, temperature, camera make, model, and lens settings, as well as the heights and distances of reference objects. This gave researchers enough information to estimate that the UFO was between 32 and 38 meters, or 104 to 124 feet in diameter, and was between 1,000 and 1,200 meters, or 3,200 and 3,900 feet above them. The more amazing thing in this story is that he took the time to actually report the sighting. You see, at the time, Romania had a communist government, and they publicly considered those that believed in the paranormal to be mad and potentially dangerous. The state news agency who covered his sighting even tried to discredit him by saying he was an ignorant, illiterate alcoholic who was just taking photos of a weather balloon. The negatives were examined by professionals, and it was concluded that there was no sign of tampering, double exposures, or any other form of trickery involved. Further, since there was no possibility of selling documents, and that their publication implied by no means a benefit to their author, there was no reason for him to hoax the image in the hopes of financial profit.
Hello, Trippers. Do you have a podcast that you want to cross-promote? Or are you a business with a product that you would like to advertise? Then reach out to us at theroadtrippingpodcast.com to see how we can help. Your success is our success, so let us succeed together by getting the word out about your product or show to other listeners and potential consumers.
More recently, the paranormal energy of the forest is taking on the form of poltergeist and ghost activity. The forest has been featured in many ghost hunting TV shows, so it is possible you have heard the name before. On one show, an investigator sitting in the clearing, called the Dead Zone as no trees will grow here, was scratched and thrown to the ground by an unseen force. This activity is said to be specifically focused within that vegetative dead zone, which locals believe to be the home of the forest's ghosts. It is nearly a perfect oval in the woods, where nothing ever grows other than grass. Soil samples have been taken from the site and analyzed, but the results show that there is nothing in the soil that should prevent the growth of plant life. This is the area most associated with photos that are said to have revealed hovering shapes and outlines of human forms. This is not the only place in the world that this happens. Another lesser-known place is located in North Carolina in the United States, and it is called the Devil's Tramping Ground, where the lore says the devil comes to dance. To me, the weirdest thing about the place seems to be the way the trees grow, all twisted and bent around at weird angles, some even splitting into multiple trunks as they grow, only to refuse back together to form a single trunk later on. No one knows exactly why or how it happens. When you look at them, and I will put some pictures up on our blog, which we affectionately call Headlights, and can be reached from our website, theroadtrippingpodcast.com. That's tripping with a G, so be sure to check them out. They look like they have some form of human intervention, but if you look closely at them, you can tell it is not possible. There is some belief that magnetic anomalies in the region cause the abnormal growth to happen, but again, no one has settled on the science of it. If you want to see the forest for yourself and maybe have an experience, there are tours that are offered both daytime and night that you can arrange to take. According to some reports I've seen, however, it is possible that the land developers in the area may win the rights to take over and develop the land for housing, so make sure you check before you make the travel arrangements. Is the forest truly haunted? I know Molly would say definitely so, but I am more of the opinion that the things that haunt you are the ghosts and demons that you bring along within yourself, and that they are brought to manifestation by the energy of a place. Who knows? Maybe she's right, or maybe I am. Either way, we're going to keep looking. Well, that's all the time we have for in today's episode of the Road Tripping Podcast. But if you liked it and want to hear more, please subscribe to the show feed and give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast directory. The more positive reviews we receive, the more trippers will be able to find us, and the faster we will grow, thus able to bring you new content. Be sure to visit our website, theroadtrippingpodcast.com, to keep updated on future shows, leave show suggestions, and see all the ways to find and interact with us all in one place. If you are able and are feeling generous, then a link to our Patreon page can be found under the support link on the homepage. As always, until next we meet, stay safe, trippers.